So this talk is going to be about the Geomajas Open Source GIS framework. It's going to be a bit different from the MapWindow. So this is a different part of the community world. We'll get to more details. Right. So what is Geomajas? Geomajas is a Java application framework which allows you to build GIS applications for the web specifically. In principle, you could also use it to build desktop applications, but apparently, well, most of our users definitely want to use it for building web applications. We make a point of integrating with as many GIS data sources as we can, and it is very easy to actually add extra plugins to integrate with more or very exotic data sources as needed. And we have an aim to actually try to give you the kind of usability and performance within your web browser that you normally have for desktop applications. And that without using any browser plugins. Definitely, I mean, most of the developments have started in Belgium, and in Belgium specifically, especially in government, having browser plugins is a big no-no, so that's very important for us. We have, our system is built to be all Java. So thanks to GWT, which is Java technology, which actually translates Java into JavaScript, you can have a team with only, well, who only has to know Java and not JavaScript. We also build on some of the biggest and most important Java libraries like Spring for dependency injection, tying everything together, Hibernate for communicating with the database, and GeoTools, which is probably the biggest and GIS toolkit in Java. A bit of the history of the project. It started, well, I would say long ago in computing terms, in 2006, as under the name of GIS, which was funded by the Flemish government in Belgium. It was, although it was funded, it was more or less an internal project within some of the projects built by a specific company called EFC. They figured out that this was very useful to actually be used in, well, to be opened up to be used by more people. So it was rebranded. Actually, it was rebranded in 2 steps. We have mentioned the first step here, but there are some relics showing that it was first named Majas, which apparently is trademarked or something. So it had to be changed to Geomajas. And the first version appeared in 2008. And at that time, it was all built with the JavaScript Dojo library to have a nice user experience. And there was a lot of evolution, and the first, say, mature version actually appeared in 2010 with version 1.6. Some of the major improvements introduced at that point were to make the framework much more modular, to have a specific API contract so that you know what part of the API you can rely on that won't change with the evolution of the project. We had the new grid phase, the GWT phase, to make sure that you only have to use Java for all of your programming. And we have commercial support, a plugin mechanism to make it very extendable, and we have a very strong support for security. In the last 2 years, there was some more evolution, so we're now at version 1.10, actually 1.11 will probably appear next month. We currently have
an ecosystem which contains, well, as far as we know, it contains 24 plugins. Admittedly, not all of them have been officially released at this moment, but we have support for SOD to give you nice styling. We have rasterizing on the server, and good support for caching to improve the performance, etc., etc. Right. So, some ideas about how it works with an architecture, from an architectural point of view. Typical desktop GIS, you have your client directly talking to your spatial, either your spatial data, the database directly, or a spatial data server like MapServer or GeoServer through the local network. When moving that to the browser, we usually end up with something like this, which typically uses a library like Open Layers in the browser, which will have communication over the internet to either the spatial data server, to spatial data server, which probably gets data from your database. And typically, a lot of the work will actually be done in the browser, which means that you have a lot of communication, hence the wide arrow here. In Geomajas, we actually try to have an intelligent, or what we call better, split between the work done on the client and on the server, and this allows us to have much thinner communication, reducing the amount of data as much as possible which needs to be communicated, and just do all the presentation on the client and do as much processing as makes sense on the server. And this is especially suited for going towards mobile applications where the bandwidth isn't always equally good. How does it work under the hood? Wow, that's big. We have a front end where we have what we call bases, which is the part which is presented to the user in the browser. Not necessarily in the browser, because that's, for example, the REST phase, which can be used for just communicating with other applications. We have the system here, which starts by having the boundary around it, which is some kind of visualization for the fact that it's all secured, which is done by a security context, which actually can communicate with an authentication server and policy service, potentially as different things, potentially integrated. It all depends on your configuration, etc. Inside, everything is dispatched by the command dispatcher. This goes to various services which are specific to handling each of the individual commands, and then internally there is a whole set of services which are combined to do the actual work. Within the slides we have the blue, purplish colors for what we say is the internal to the system. The green things are meant to indicate points where you can do configuration of plugins to make it suit your environment and your needs. So this stuff itself, so the actual Geomajas server will communicate with, or will get the data through either raster or vector layers, and this will connect to your data sources, be it spatial servers like GeoServer or MapServer, or directly to your database or data source. Okay, for the security, how does it work? The web client communicates with the Geomajas server. When communicating, it will pass a security token to indicate what the user is allowed to do or is not allowed to do. This can then, the Geomajas server can communicate on the local or wide area network to the data sources.
it will do whatever security filtering and transformations are necessary to make sure that when the data is sent back to the browser, that no sensitive data is available. Even when using something like Firebug, view source, whatever, only data which is actually allowed to be shown or displayed to the user will be within the browser to make sure that you have no security leaks there. Similarly, if the data sources need authentication, even if it's global authentication, there will be no credential leakage in your browser. That is one of the things which I believe is reasonably unique, or very unique, within the open source tools for doing GIS in the browser. Right, so how does it all combine? We have the Geomajas system, which is the outer layer, which is here coined as Spatial Application Server. We don't officially call it like that. That's more or less future vision, where we'll have full integration and administration, profiling, tuning, etc. within an application server. You will be able to deploy within that system your applications which are built using the Geomajas system, and it will by itself contain the Geomajas framework itself. The framework consists of various plugins displayed here. There's always the backend, which is core plugin or the core system, and you can then add faces and various other plugins as needed. And there are also some extra projects available, which we do not call plugins because they're at a lower level. They can more easily be reused in other Java projects, as they don't rely on the Geomajas backend. So there is something for the API support, the geometry, for handling geometries, for handling SLP. What's interesting to know as well is that these projects, they actually have a more liberal license, and they're Apache licensed, while the rest of the system is a Faro GPL. Right. So here is a list of the plugins which we are aware of within within the community at this moment. Some of the core ones are the faces, which is whatever is the front end of the system. I will do a demo later which shows you both the width and the pure width faces. There's a bit of a difference between the two, so both of them use width to do the translation from Java to JavaScript. We originally started using writing the width face, which actually integrates with Smart Width as a widget library, but later on we actually realized that forcing people to use a specific widget library is not, not everyone likes that. So we actually created a second phase which has less widget support by default, but is by consequence a lot lighter. So that's a pure width phase. That's not released yet, it's going to be released soon, though I'm not actually sure how soon is. So it could be anything between next month and 3 or 4 months. But I'll be showing those two in a little later. So for the rest of it, we have caching, editing, we have geocoded plugin, and you can actually choose where the data from the geocoded plugin comes from. So we currently, by default, give you options to use the Yahoo place finder or geonames, but you can also plug in any other data source for that as well. There is a plugin which gives you a JavaScript API for easy integration with whatever website you have. Otherwise,
There is a printing plugin, there's profiling to make sure that you have some kind of idea of what's happening in your system. There's a rasterizing. We have a reporting plugin. There's a security plugin, which is not as static as the name suggests. There are various additional plugins with widgets. One is for more advanced views, more advanced display of features. I'll be showing some of that later on. There are there's advanced searching and filtering that I will also show, but also be only in my talk later today. And there are some extra simple utility widgets. There are various data sources which can be connected to. GeoTools is a bit of an open-ended source because that library by itself gives you access to a lot of data sources. Most important ones here are direct access to the database, WFS, WMS. Especially the WFS is going through GeoTools there. We have access to Google tiles. Though, with the licensing, I'm not actually sure whether I would recommend you to use that. We have access to the database using Hibernate so that you can access the database through Java objects. KML-based access to OpenStreetMap tiles and general TMS tiles and WMS. I'll give you a bit of a demo. Can't see what it's without looking at the screen now. Okay. Right. So this is a showcase. This is the current version. This is the in development version of the showcase. There's actually an older version available on the Geomajas website, but that doesn't include all of the features that we have now. So this one is going to be part of the next release, which is in the next couple of weeks. Some of the fun things I want to show here is the rendering within Geomajas is done with what we call rendering pipeline, and that rendering pipeline is fully configurable, and this gives you a couple of nice features. So this map contains 3 layers: a background layer, which is a blue marble, which is this one, so we switch it off. And we have 2 layers which contain countries, and they both use the same underlying data, which is the WFS data store. And one is the normal display, which is the bluish display here. And the other one, we actually use the pipeline to modify the geometries to have, to replace the actual geometry of the feature by a circle of which the size more or less corresponds to the size of the original geometry. This gives us results like this. So the pipelines, we can actually configure whether to apply them to specific layers or to all layers. Not suitable for a 2-minute demo or something, but it is fun to actually apply that pipeline to all layers, and then you get nice effects where you start editing features, and after you're done drawing, you save it and poof, it turns into a circle. Not necessarily more. Right, some of the things I'm going to show you. We have a pretty powerful editing of geometries within the system. So, where we can easily just do whatever changes we want to do to the geometry. So you can see that I can just indicate the point on one of the edges to add an extra point on it, or if I just drag one on top of another one, I can remove a point. If I'm not on the edges, I can still just do hand the window. I can zoom in and out if I want to, and still continue editing at any point. Right. Now, what's very interesting about this demo actually is that there's this button on the right here which says View Source. So if you click on that, you can get an overview of all the configuration files which are needed and an overview of the Java which was used to. That's not time to correct that. Well, but you can see all the configuration files, you can see the Java source used for the example. Let me just show a couple more. So we have the geocoder fingering belt now. So now we will actually give you a choice of which belt you're supposed to be at. You don't know which one it is. Is this where we are? Is it?
Yes.
Oh yes, let's do it. Okay. So you can just read like that. You can also use that potentially to enter coordinates directly if you would be so inclined. And then just another quick demo of the feature info plugin. So this just allows you to get information about features and how to configure it on mouse over, or search on features. For example, if I click here, I get Paris, and I can easily click on and get to what's supposed to be something. Wikipedia page. Selection of hours or something. Quick demos as always. That's good. Thank you. Right. Okay, so you can easily browse through that. It is hidden there is a hidden URL or a non-public URL, but if you would want to have a look and browse through this version, which is actually automatically updated every time we do a deploy, just let me know and I'll give you the public URL. Okay. So we also have the pure grid face that works. That doesn't have the smart widget library, which shows. So this gives you a lot more freedom with how you design the rest of the whole page. This one has the advantage that because it's actually newer code and because the programmers learned a lot while doing all this work, this actually performs a lot better. It has a couple of nice visual effects like the zoom in, etc. I know we're all used to it from Google Maps, but fortunately the other piece doesn't have it. So there is a demo here as well. I was moving through the internet. Okay, so far for the demo. Back to the presentation. Right. Okay, so that was it. If you want to have more information about Geomajas, go to the website. You can ask questions now.
If you have questions later, please don't hesitate to either talk to me here or contact me using the details.